morning. Let's take you in for a minute. Take in all this love. Let's all take in all this love. Feel that? It's an energy of love. Oh, thank you. That was last week, but but I'll take it. All right. So, Chuck Feeney grew up in a middle-class family in New Jersey in the midst of the Depression. And like all families at that time, you know, his parents were having difficulty putting food on the table. So as a kid, Chuck went and shoveled people's driveways. You know, he was in New Jersey, right? Shoveled people's driveways and went door to door selling Christmas cards and, you know, whatever he could to add a few more cents to the pile. And as he grew up, he realized that he had quite the entrepreneurial spirit. And when he served in the army in the Korean War. It was the Korean War that was happening then. He served as a radio operator, which when I read that, I remembered, do you remember a show like way back then of a radio operator serving in Korea? Radar, right, in MASH. You have to be of a certain age to have seen that. It was a classic, though, right? So he found a way to make a little extra money while he was there by selling duty-free liquor to servicemen. And after the war, he expanded his little duty-free enterprise and went on to create the largest chain of duty-free shopping stores in the world. So every time you go into an airport in any city of the world, the duty-free shopping, that's his. It was his idea. So he became a multimillionaire and then a billionaire several times over. And around the age of 50, he realized that, you know what? Having a ton of money does not necessarily make one happy. In fact, he felt empty. He felt this emptiness. And so he began to give to charity, and he felt better. And then he gave more to charity, and he felt even better. And he kept giving, and he felt like that hole that was inside was now full, that there was love, that there was a sense of connection, that he felt part of the larger whole of life. And he created his own philanthropic organization called Atlantic Philanthropies. And they, identify worthy causes all over the world to give to, but they keep the donors anonymous. And this was really important to him. Some people, honestly, wealthy philanthropists, they give because they want to see their name on a building or a wing of a hospital named after them, right? Well, this was not his reason. He gave because the reward was that feeling of fulfillment, of joy, of knowing that he was making a difference in people's lives. And in the end, he gave away $8 billion, which is basically all the money he had. I mean, he really kind of lived the idea of you can't take it with you, so it might as well be doing somebody some good. And he died at the age, this year, he died at 92 with a heart full of joy and love and fulfillment, knowing that he had made such a big impact in the world. And so, when we hear this, we're tempted to think, well, yeah, if I had a lot of money, I could be generous too. I could make a lot of difference too. I could feel that way too. But generosity has very little to do with how much money we have and everything to do with our mindset, our way of being, our orientation to life. Are we oriented to, getting from life everything that we can get, or giving to life everything that we can give. And so I personally, when I was looking at this, I noticed that I have done a slow pivot in my life to a different way of being oriented. I mean, certainly in my 20s, it was all about me. The focus was me and my career and my own personal growth and taking care of my own needs and finding love. And, so I didn't care about other people. It's all about me. And I kind of came of age in the me generation, right? Because then we learned happiness equals, getting what you want. But I wasn't really getting what I wanted. Therefore, I wasn't really happy. Or so I connected those two things. And I distinctly remember sitting in a service, a spiritual community, very small spiritual community. In fact, the minister, I think, was just getting the group started, and she was doing it in her living room. And she said to us at one point, she said, "I feel so good giving, don't you? I mean, it feels so much better to give than receive, doesn't it?" She asked. And I sat there thinking, well, that hasn't been my experience. In fact, it feels pretty darn good to receive, actually. That's where I was. But what she said kind of stuck with me. And I wish I could say I changed my life at that point, but, it was a little slower. It was a process, right? She planted a seed. And so I was curious about this. And even though I was struggling to, pay my rent, to just sort of get by, I was kind of at the end of my acting career at the time and doing a lot of temp work to make ends meet and, gigs here and there. Just trying to, make do. But I thought, okay, well, I'm going to experiment with this idea. And so I gave $1 to a homeless person. That felt pretty good. And then I started giving a little more to, this spiritual community. It felt good. I felt like I was part of something larger than myself. I began to feel that way. And then I began to say yes to some of the solicitation, that come in the mail. Everybody gets those, right? All those charities, they all want your money. And I said yes to a couple of them. In particular, Save the Children, the Save the Children organization. And this is where you kind of sponsor a child in a developing country. And so I signed up for this, and this child that I sponsored, this boy, was growing up in Mali. And at the time, I'm like, I don't know, what's Mali? I don't even know where it was. But I began to learn about it. And he sent me pictures of his village, and he sent me pictures of himself, and he wrote me letters. And then I wrote letters back, and we got this correspondence going. And I felt, wow, this connection with somebody I wouldn't normally have anything in common with, except there was this love. There was this connection, and I felt like, wow, if I can do this, if I can feel like I'm making a difference in someone's life like this, okay, this is pretty good. This feels pretty good. And again, just barely making ends meet. But here's the interesting thing. I never experienced a decrease in the amount of money that I had at the end of the month. I never experienced a decrease. Something would open up. I would get a gig here, or I'd get a raise, or something would come in, and I would have the same amount of money, or maybe even a little bit more at the end of the month. And I thought, oh, this is interesting. So I started seeing the connection and trusting it. But maybe more than that, I really understood what the minister was saying. I really got it. Yeah, it did feel really good to give. And I felt this, wow, this fulfillment and this joy in this experience that I hadn't felt before. And I felt part of a larger whole. Do you know what I mean? I felt part of a larger whole. And so giving, practicing generosity, is a basic human need. It's a basic human need. We are designed to give. We're designed to share. In fact, we studied the book study group a few months ago, and the guy in the book, Derek Rydell, said in the book that the Sanskrit meaning of the word man is dispenser of divine gifts. A dispenser of divine gifts. That's who we are in our essence, you know? And our survival has really kind of depended upon that. When you think about it, evolutionarily speaking, we've had to share what we had with the tribe, right? That's how we've done it. That's how we've survived. And so, even in addition to this feeling that giving, that being generous gives us, and this sense of purpose and meaning in life, there are also tangible benefits, health benefits, to being generous. I'll go over a few. Number one, improved mental health. So studies have shown that acts of generosity release those hormones, those feel-good hormones in your brain like dopamine and oxytocin that boost your mood and reduce stress. Not a bad thing, right? Secondly, generosity has been associated with improved physical health. So blood pressure, they've done studies, blood pressure lowers, cortisol levels lower, and it can lengthen our lifespan. Chuck Feeney lived to 92. That's a pretty good run of it. And it also reverses the negative effects of stress on our body. It's pretty cool. If we're feeling stress in our body, what's an antidote to that? Where can I give? How can I be generous, right? Excuse me. It enhances relationships. Generosity just, helps us connect more deeply with others. And it promotes trust, gratitude, a feeling of connection and community. Generous people report higher levels of life satisfaction and overall well-being. And finally, generosity has the power to create a positive ripple effect, which is one of the affirmations that we were reading this morning. A positive ripple effect. You think about it, if you are generous to someone else, in whatever way that is, they are inspired, right? And they may be inspired to be generous with someone else. And that person, passes it on. And you've created this daisy chain of kindness and goodwill. And so let's expand this out just a little bit to include a deeper spiritual understanding of this concept. So when you practice generosity without the expectation of a reward, right? You are demonstrating the principle that money is life energy, that it is love energy, it's spiritual energy, and it must flow. Energy must flow. It must circulate. And it's love energy. It does good in the world. And even deeper, when we experience a higher level of giving, we begin to realize that the money didn't belong to us in the first place. It's God. It's source energy. Now, this sounds really radical, but hang in there with me. You're looking at me like, what is she saying? What do you mean it doesn't belong to me? All right, let's do an experiment to do this. Take a deep breath in, and then release it. Now, did the breath you just breathe in belong to you? No. You received it, and for a brief moment, it revitalized your body, and then you released it, let it go, and it blesses the plants and the trees that receive it, and then you trust that it's there again when you need it. It's there. It's that circulation of energy. Well, money is spiritual substance. It's spiritual substance, and it moves through our consciousness according to our level of acceptance. Hear that, according to our level of acceptance. It moves into our lives, revitalizes our life, blesses us, and then we release it and allow it to move and bless others. It's that circulation. It's when we try to hold on to it that we suffer, like trying to hold on to a breath. We would suffer if we were holding on to the breath. You gotta let it go and take it in and trust. It's going. It's circulating. That's the way it is. Another way we can look at this is trees, fruit-bearing trees. If you think about a fruit-bearing tree, it is designed to produce fruit. Doesn't do the tree any good to hold on to the fruit. In fact, the fruit would rot. Wouldn't be so good. The fruit belongs to the ecosystem. Really belongs to the ecosystem. That's how it all works, how nature works. All flora, when all the flora and fauna of nature share of its fruit, the community flourishes. The community flourishes. So Derek Rydell says in that book, The Abundance Project, that was our source of book study a while back. He says, and he's talking about the concept of sharing of our time, talent, and treasure. He says, your treasure doesn't belong to you in the first place. It belongs to God, Source, the universe, the world. Just as your talents in the truest sense don't belong to you, but to the community. This has also been called giving your first fruits to God. And the reason for this principle is that everyone and everything is an instrument of life. An instrument of life. A way through which life shares and circulates its good. Let's breathe that in for a moment. Let's anchor that in our consciousness by affirming after me. I am an instrument of the divine. Together, I am an instrument of the divine. Life energy circulates through me to bless others. Life energy circulates through me to bless others. I am part of the greater whole. I am part of the greater whole. Yes. We're all part of the greater whole. So, as Maya Angelou said, I have found that among its many other benefits, giving liberates the soul of the giver. Giving liberates the soul of the giver. Let's liberate our soul. And in so doing, our community flourishes. Our community flourishes. Yes? All right. Namaste.